Hello and welcome to the channel. Time to catch up with the sale results for Mathewsons Classic Car Auction for May 2025. 379 cars up for grabs, so I won't be covering the full sale results. I'll just be picking out the lots that I found interesting. And as I've said before, the prices listed are the hammer price. So remember, the buyer's premium and VAT needed to be added on top to work out the total. So let's make a start with lot 4. The 1977 Mark II Ford Capri 3-litre S, showing 88,000 miles and apparently one of only 15 left on the road, and it's finished in a special order colour of Hawaiian blue. Quite a striking colour and a very nice car. I was interested to see how this one got on because I saw this car back in June 2023 at the car show at Castle Howard and again at Ripon last year. Now the estimate was £7,000 to £8,000, which seems low for what's such a nice car in a rare colour and with that 3-litre engine. So how did it do? Well, before the auction began, it was already bid to £7,500, and the first two bids saw the price rise to 8.5, then 8,750, and there was no shortage of bids with some determined buyers, with it finally selling for £13,100. Moving on to lot 20. So last month we had the Vauxhall VX490, you may recall, but this month we've got the range-topping 1977 Vauxhall VX2300 GLS. Of course, it's an automatic, 32,400 miles, and the estimate was given as £5,000 to £6,000. And being the top of the range, it came with standard features such as a vinyl roof, power steering, and double headlights, which I always felt worked quite well design-wise. It did say in the description, and as you'll see in the pictures, that it needed some cosmetics. The sale got underway, but the bids weren't going to set the world alight. Provisionally bid to £4,100. That provisional bid was later converted to a selling price of £4,500. The next lot is 22, this rather handsome 1995 Mercedes E280, finished in silver. Estimate given as 2,750 to 3,750. Every now and again you come across a car which just jumps out at you. Now, the E-Class is a fine car, don't get me wrong, but normally I wouldn't give them a second glance because there's so many of them out there. But this one stands out head and shoulders above the rest. None of the usual rust issues in the front wing corners where they meet the bumpers. The pictures speak for themselves, and I think it wears its 111,000 miles very well indeed. And of course, this is nothing for a car like this. I suspect it has wanted for nothing and was cherished by its owner, and it looks just as good underneath. It's come from long-term ownership, and it speaks volumes about the owner's care for this car, that despite the low estimate, it's been sent to market with a fresh MOT, new battery, 4 new tyres, along with its final service, which has been carried out by the same mechanic for the last 25 years. I think it's beautiful. I think it deserves to do well, and let's hope it finds a new owner who will care for it as much as the last one. How did the sale go? I was surprised that there didn't appear to be any commission bids, and the bidding opened at £1,500. The hammer falling on a provisional bid of just £1,900. I can't believe this car didn't get more interest. It would appear, though, that after further negotiation, a sale price of £2,500 was achieved. And I would say that executive motoring doesn't come much cheaper than this, and this has to be one of my stars of the show. Up next, lot 38, a 1981 Porsche 911 Targa. Described as an entry-level car, the paintwork had an orange peel finish, they mentioned overspray, and as you can see, the engine compartment and the interior could all do with a makeover. And perhaps this goes some way to explain why the estimate was set at £20,000 to £22,000, and it made this car seem more affordable. But that said, before the sale began, bids had already been registered to £25,500, and that's where the bidding opened, finally selling for £30,250. I think it's fair to say that Porsche seemed to be one of the premium brands that still seems to be maintaining a reasonable selling price. We're now going to be taking a look at lot 48, and I like this one. Registered in Dorset, it's a 1990 XR3i Convertible, possibly sold by Hendy Ford or FF English. And compared to your standard XR3i, I think they offer excellent value for money. Most people opt in for the tin top, of course. Personally speaking, I see these as a winner because you've got all the looks in convertible format, so you can enjoy that summer sun. We're told it's covered just 39,300 miles since new, 27 stamps in the service book, and it's a special edition, attractively finished in Bahama blue over moonstone with a nice blue electric hood. Lovely fancy wheels and spotlights, and it comes with the original bill of sale as well as a special edition sales brochure. It also has the original tonneau cover and an RS boot spoiler. And just look under that bonnet, isn't that wonderful? A very smart and attractive car, which I expected to do well. The estimate was set at £7,000 to £8,000, so where did it end up? Well, no real surprise. There was a lot of interest on this one, and rightly so. Finally selling to Elizabeth in Reading for a well-deserved £13,100. Good money for a good car. The next lot is 54, 2001 Rover Mini, John Kooper edition. And out of 21 Minis in the sale, I was interested to see how this one fared. Looking rather spectacular, it seemed too cheap, estimated at £7,000 to £8,000. It's one of 300 run-out limited edition models, and I remember looking at one of these on display at my local Rover dealer, South Cleveland Garages. I seem to recall there were about £7,000 new, and I see that that's where this one was registered. Was it the car that I saw? I asked myself. Well, it could well be with just 300 built. The perfect combination of dark green with mulberry leather seats, along with an aluminium turn dashboard, wide arches, nice alloys, and John Kooper badges on the doors. Very nice indeed. I like it very much. They have such an appeal. Now, Minis were really on the rise price-wise, and they were maintaining their own when the downturn came along for quite a while. That said, over the last year, they appear to have suffered a drop back in prices. Well, this one achieved a very respectable £9,700. Moving on to lot 92, a pretty little 1968 Lotus Elan Plus 2. The mileage is stated as 49,735, and we're told it was rebuilt in 2013 using a galvanised chassis, along with a rebuilt engine and gearbox and diff, and a professional repaint. It looks very smart. Estimate was given at £15,000 to £17,000, and Derek told us it was on the sale from the go, and it sold for just above the lower estimate at £15,200. Sure to create a bit of attention is lot 94, a 1990 Renault 5 GT Turbo showing 72,000 miles. This being a second generation car introduced to the UK in 1985, and it's hard to believe that the Renault 5 was actually introduced back in 1972. Production of the GT Turbo, of course, ended in 1991 when the Clio was launched. And between 1976 and 1983, the Renault 5 also sold in America as Le Car. The estimate was given as £9,000 to £12,000. Although the body looks sound enough, the paintwork looks to have faded a little and needs some TLC. And it's the same under the bonnet. But it's sold to a buyer in Kent for £10,000. The next lot we're going to take a look at is lot 130. You don't see one of these every day. It's a 1959 standard Vanguard Vignale two-door ute, built for the Australian market by Standard subsidiary company, which was formed by the Crosby family in 1952, and they were assembled at Port Melbourne in Victoria. It was a facelifted version of the Phase 3 Vanguard, styled by the Italian designer Michelotti and, of course, coach builders Vignale. A useful vehicle which can be repurposed to however you want it, sure to attract attention wherever you go, but it was only bid to £7,250, and of course it failed to sell, and it remains available. Moving on to lot 134, a 1985 Rover 2000 SD1. It's finished in cashmere gold and it's got 42,000 miles, and it's quite rare now because obviously most sold either had the 2.6 or the 3.5 engine, although they also produced a 2.3 and a diesel 2.4. I do like SD1s, but these do look basic, and it's amazing how much the lack of overriders on the bumpers make it look a real poverty spec. Back in 1982, they had just pressed steel wheels and not hubcaps like these, and both power steering and rear seatbelts were options. Of course, it didn't become law to wear a seatbelt in the rear until 1989 for children and 1991 for adults. That said, if we get past that and appreciate the car for what it is, it looks to be in very good condition. Looking under the bonnet itself, you can see how good the inner wings are. The estimate was given as £9,000 to £11,000, which I thought seemed a little high to me. I would have thought £7,000 to £8,000 more appropriate, given that last month they sold a beautiful 38,000 mile Porto Red 2.6 VP for £9,850. Bidding opened at £7,000 and it finished with a provisional bid of £7,900. The bid was later improved following the auction and it saw the car sell for £8,250. Next up is lot 168, a 1980 Vauxhall Carlton. When was the last time you saw one of these? Dorset registered, so it comes from a nice kind climate. First owner for 43 years, and we're told just 25,025 miles from new. It's finished in pine green, and the interior is simply called beige ribbed velour, and it reckons to be one of only 3 left. I would say it's the interior of this car that gives the game away that this is a genuine low mileage car. The exterior paintwork, however, does have a lot of orange peel, and it looks as though it could do with a little improvement. Nonetheless, a nice solid looking car, the estimate given as £4,000 to £5,000. It finished with a provisional bid of £3,200 from a hopeful buyer in Norfolk. Unfortunately, it failed to sell and it remains available. The next lot up is 211, a 1974 V12 E-Type Jaguar Roadster. First registered on the 1st of May 1974, which is interesting because production ended in June of the same year. There are a lot of people who don't like the look of the V12 with its bigger front grille. I'm not one of them. And I love these cars. And primrose yellow, it's the perfect colour. I think it really suits the car well. I used to see one of these brand new sitting on the owner's drive on my walk home from school. The estimate 45 to 55,000, which reflects the current market as prices have fallen back, but at this price it seems good value to me. The bidding opened at £40,000 and it did find a new home, finishing at £47,000. You wouldn't have thought it possible not so long ago. A very nice car and a fair price. Now on to lot 216, and it's the 1967 third generation Toyota Corona, which was introduced in 1964, and it was in production until 1970. Interesting that Toyota GB was only formed in 1965, and that's when they began importing cars to the UK. This car is a very rare sight indeed, although surprisingly, I did see a white 1966 model just last year at a local show, owned privately. And they tell us that it's the only one on UK roads. The other one, a white 1966 model, is with Toyota GB. Subject to a nut and bolt rebuild in 2020, it looks superb in red. This year, all the bright work's been re-chromed. It's had a new exhaust and new front brake tubes. How do you value something like this? Well, the estimate was set at £12,500 to £15,000. A very nice little car. Unfortunately, it failed to find a buyer at £10,200 and it remains available. This next lot I did find quite interesting, and that's lot 236, a 1989 Jaguar XGS. It's the 3.6, it's finished in Arctic blue, and it looks very presentable. These cars are such bargains at the moment, but like many others, they've been in the doldrums price-wise. But all is not lost, because it would appear that people still want nice ones. And I'm basing this on the sale results from Historics auctions held on the 3rd of May, because they had 3 in the sale and all sold. They had a very nice convertible, which they said sold for an undisclosed sum, but when the bidding ended, it had already been bid to 13,750. They also had a very nice 1987 V12 fixed head with 50,000 miles, which sold for 11,440. And the final entry was a 1989 3.6 fixed head with 42,000 miles, and it sold for £13,156. Still cheap motors as far as I'm concerned. So what about this one? Well, its estimate was £4,000 to £5,000. It's got 92,000 miles, but the positive aspect is that before the auction began, 9 bids had already been placed, with it set at £6,800 before we even started. So let's see where it went. Well, the hammer finally fell, with it selling for £8,200 to an internet bidder from Clitheroe. And I don't think that's too bad, and that proves that there's still hope. Lot 244, a 1991 Alfa Romeo Spider S4, and it's the cloverleaf model to boot. I've always liked these, always found them quite appealing, and this one's no exception. It had rather a low estimate, with £6,000 to £7,000 for what looks to be a really lovely car, worth much more in my opinion. 85,000 miles, because the speedometer's in kilometres. It looks lovely in the red, and a nice cream interior with a black hood. That would be my choice. And best of all, it's right-hand drive, though some people may disagree with that. The S4 was only available in left-hand drive format, but Bell and Colville, I believe, was one of the companies that offered them new in right-hand drive format from the garage in Leatherhead. It sold to a lucky bidder, Paul from Liverpool, for £9,000, which is fairly respectable in today's climate. And maintaining the Italian theme, we've got Lot 256, a 1971 Lancia Fulvia. Looks very smart, and it's nice to see it in a colour other than red or blue, isn't it? 62,000 miles, and it comes in left-hand drive format, being imported from Italy in 2019, where it's believed to have been restored. The estimate was £10,000 to £12,000, and it achieved £11,500 on the day, and it's heading to its new home in Tyne and Wear. And for something different, yet again, Lot 90, a Toyota Land Cruiser fire tender. Not a great deal of information about this one, unfortunately. Nothing much in the write-up. Nothing much mentioned as such on the auction itself. Although you can see it's a fire tender, and it would appear to have come from being in use in Japan. And it's got 6,000 miles only on the clock. It was provisionally bid to £12,500. Not known whether that will secure it. On to Lot 492, a 1981 Volvo 262C with a 2.6 V6 engine. Mileage showing 52,400. Now, you don't see many of these nowadays. And this one through Derek, he'd never heard of a 262. Someone had to put him right. They were on sale between 1978 to 1981, and this one's coming from the last year of production, hence no vinyl roof, which I believe was deleted from 1980 1981. The styling was by Bertone, of course, and when you used to see them back in the 70s and 80s, they were really something different and rather special. Initially only available in silver with a black vinyl roof, I don't recall seeing them in any other colours, perhaps gold. But more recently, there was a black one at the Classic Car Show at the NEC, I think 2 years ago. And I didn't know they made them in any other colours, but apparently they did later in production. The estimate for this is £5,500 to £6,500, which I thought seemed fair given the fact that there's some remedial works needed. It should make a nice car and quite a rare thing, particularly in right-hand drive. And the seats look to be in nice condition, but just imagine how nice they would be with a nice recolour. It was bid to £4,600, but that wasn't enough to secure it, and again, as such, remains available. The next one up is Lot 680, a 1986 Ford Capri 1.6 Laser with just 9,261 miles from new. Finished in Strato Silver and still in its original paint, the estimate was given as £14,000 to £16,000. Strong money, but it's a nice car and it looks just as nice underneath. So where did it end up? The bidding opened at £11,000, and with plenty of bids coming through, it wasn't long before the upper estimate of £16,000 was reached. But it hadn't finished yet. The final bid saw the hammer fall at £20,000. An excellent result, but not too surprising. And as they say, it's only original once, and to restore one could cost you a lot more than this. Moving on, the focus is now on Fords, or should I say the Ford Focus, and I've singled out two. Lot 214, I do like these Focus STs, and I've got to say that this is my favourite colour, the launch colour of electric orange. I absolutely adore this colour. This one's a 2008 and it's a four-door model. Personally, I prefer the look of the two-door. With a sensible mileage of 78,700, and it's amazing how cheap some of these have become and are very attainable. But I've said before, buy the best you can and it'll pay you dividends. These cars surely have to be the next RS Turbo, so I would say it's worth picking up a good one while it's still possible. The estimate was set at £7,000 to £8,000, and it sold for its top estimate of £8,000, which I would say seems a pretty good result. The next one up is Lot 506, a 2006 Focus ST2 in Grabber Blue. Love the wheels, and it's a car that really looks a business. They tell us it's fitted with an RS engine, and they tell us that the repaint alone cost £5,000, and it was estimated at £6,000 to £7,000. It also sold well at £7,400. On to Lot 720, the 1989 MG Metro Turbo, estimated at £5,000 to £6,000. Now, you might think that seems a lot of money, but they usually sell quite well. That said, this car obviously needs a lot of work to bring it back up to standard, so there's no underestimating that. It's finished in diamond white, a colour that I think suits these cars really well. It's still got its correct decals on the sides, but the wheels would originally have been colour-coded white. Inside, it's still got its sculpted velvet seats, but the driver's seat's missing its red diagonal stripe, but that should be a fairly easy fix. It's showing 66,000 miles, so let's just see how it did. Well, as the auction began, it had bids up to £5,000. However, there were no further bids forthcoming, and the hammer fell with the car selling for £5,000. Not bad considering the amount of work required, but it should make a nice car. The next one along is Lot 726, 2002 Bentley Arnage, a 6,750cc V8 twin turbo capable of producing 450 brake horsepower. Estimate 13,800 to 14,800. Now, there's plenty of these on the market, and there's quite a few cheap ones, so you can afford to be picky, because you know it won't be cheap if something goes wrong, so you need to buy right. This car looks right in all respects, and we're told it's had recent expenditure on the suspension along with the brakes, which can both be expensive maintenance jobs. Just 65,972 miles, and the colour is just so right. Red fire glow metallic, I absolutely love it. And that's topped off with the most beautiful barley hide. The dashboard has a red top roll and a barley knee roll, with a turned aluminium finish around the dials, which are set into piano black finish. Personally, I prefer a nice walnut dashboard, but that's just my preference. You also get reclining electric rear seats in this car. No one does interiors better than Bentley or Rolls as far as I'm concerned. Now, as a guide, Historic's last sale in May saw a similar 2002 model in dark blue with 63,000 miles sell for £11,440. This car had an engine light illuminated, and it was reported that the heater tap was leaking. Now, I thought this was quite a good result given the issue, but how did this lot get on? Well, the bidding started at £12,000 and they were going up in increments of £100. The Bentley finally selling for £14,600. This looks to be one of the nicest I have seen, and it really is a nice car and worthy of its price. You get what you pay for. Personally, I think this was quite cheap for what you got. I'm also going to be taking a look at Lot 318, the 1996 Bentley Brooklyn R, a floor change model with just 37,258 miles. Peacock blue with a nice magnolia interior. It looks to be a lovely car and better than most in that it doesn't appear to have the usual rust issues. Estimated at £15,000 to £20,000, the hammer fell on a provisional bid of, wait for it, £12,250. And if that secures it, well, all I can say is, what a bargain. Nice car, nice colour combination, excellent mileage, unbelievable and worth every single penny at that price. And following the same theme, it seems only appropriate to also take a look at Lot 71, a 1929 RollsRoyce Phantom 1. And what a magnificent beast of a car. Derek was in charge of this one and opened by saying it's been filmed by the Bangers and Cash team, and so it's a TV star already, and that they hope that the new buyer will agree to appear on television as part of the story. Think Phantom, Duesenberg, V12 Cadillac, and it just shouts the Art Deco period like no other. And it was a period of extravagance like no other. Of course, 1929 was also the year it came crashing down with the Wall Street crash. This car has such a magnificent history, which I'm not going into, but it does make for interesting reading, and there's even a photograph of it in Motor magazine back in 1929. At £40,000 to £50,000, it seems cheap for a Phantom, but for one of this quality, it seems ridiculous. And we know that all cars are not flavour of the month, but it's usually cars like this are the ones that buck that trend. So it'll be interesting to see how many people are actually clambering to get their hands on it. So the sale opened and Derek's declared that there was quite a lot of interest. And there were a few very hopeful bids starting at £25,000. The bidding quickly rose, but then stopped at £32,000. And Derek managed to squeeze a further £500, which you knew by this point it was struggling. So for a paltry £32,500, the hammer fell on a provisional sale only. Rather disappointing. And I can't believe that there wasn't more interest in this car. For me, this is another one of my stars of the show. And you don't often get to see a car like this, so enjoy it and savour it while you can. Lot 749, a 1974 Morris Marina 1.8 TC Coupe, a car which was designed by Roy Haynes, who also designed the Mark II Cortina. It's finished in Rheingold metallic and it's complemented with an ochre interior. Standard features included twin SU carbs, front disc brakes, vinyl roof, tinted windows, reversing lights, and you also got underriders. You got TC specific Ross style wheels, and you got trims along the sills as well as coach lines, and a TC specific grille. Love the Leyland spotlights, by the way. But there's one thing that confuses me, and that's that the car looks to have a vinyl interior. And I know the early TCs had vinyl seats, but by the time 1973-74 had come along, I thought they came with nylon cloth seats. Now, I don't think I'm imagining it, but if anyone out there knows or can clarify further, I'd be interested to hear from you. I'm sure the TC Jubilee edition had blue cloth seats. I'm also surprised by the black vinyl roof. I thought it would have been brown. Anyway, that's by the by. Long time since I've seen one. A car a lot of people love to knock. I'm not one of them. Having owned a 1.8 Super, it was a good car. It did everything I ever wanted it to, and it was a very nippy little thing. I'd have loved to have had a TC. Now, the Marina has a good following, and rightly so. And did you know this car has something in common with the Jensen Interceptor? And that's the Kooper badge, which was also used on the Jensen Kooper. Well, at least 60 of them anyway. You may think the estimate of 17,500 to 19,500 seems high. And initially, so did I. But when I thought about it, I concluded it didn't seem too unrealistic. The pictures speak for themselves. It's fantastic, and it's like a new one would have been. Don't be too surprised if it goes for more, because remember, the Marina pickup recently sold by Mathewsons back in February went for 23,750. And then in March, somebody paid 15,400 for the Morris Ital van. Now, to paraphrase the words from a 10cc song of the same era, Dreadlock Holiday, I don't like it, I love it. So let's catch up with it and see how it got on in the sale. Bids were submitted to 14,750 and the sale got underway. But the final bid of £15,200 fell far short of its lower estimate. Surprisingly, this car failed to sell and it remains available. That's the problem, the difference between expectation and actual. But personally, I still think it's quite a good result. The next selection is Lot 890, the 1978 Volvo 244DL Auto, which I think looks rather wonderful in its mittelgelb or medium yellow paint. And yes, it may be fairly ordinary, but that's part of its appeal. And a little over 50,000 miles recorded, and it's all original body and paint. It's a perfect example of what they looked like when they were new. Estimate £8,000 to £9,000. So where did it end up? The bidding started at £8,000, and after a long spell at £9,900, I thought it was going to sell. Dave raised the hammer, and just as it was about to fall, a further bid crept in at the last minute. However, it seemed that extra £100 was going to secure it, until Dave wryly said, I have 10,100 on my sheet. Are there any further bids? To which there was no answer, and the hammer finally fell at £10,100. The next few lots had some quite surprising results, and we're going to make a start with lot 14, a 1935 Rover 12. Now, its estimate was £6,000 to £8,000, and we're told it was subject to an older restoration back in 1996, but the paintwork was said to be showing some micro blistering. Now, we all know that the market for pre-war cars has dropped back, but that wasn't the case for this one. And it was a battle between Somerset and Knaresborough. Somerset finally winning that battle when the hammer fell at £12,100. An excellent result, I would say. The next one up is Lot 18, a 2011 Mini Countryman Kooper S All 4, which is the four-wheel drive version. Showing 20,426 miles, the estimate was given as £6,000 to £7,000. And there was lots of bids on this one and 3 determined bidders. And it was between Redcar, Scarborough and Selby. But who was going to win? And it appeared that the hammer was about to fall on more than one occasion, only to receive yet another late bid. But the final and winning bid came from Redcar, who secured the car for £13,000. And the next one up is Lot 108, a 2003 Vauxhall Corsa Elegance. One lady owner from new, showing 20,055 miles, and the estimate was given as 1,500 to 2.5. How much did it sell for? £3,800. Wow, that's a lot of money for a 2003 Vauxhall Corsa, isn't it? Another surprise result was lot 164, a 2003 S-Type Jaguar, which was one of 7 in the sale. Not normally known to sell high, this car had the 2.5 V6 engine, and its estimate was set at £1,000 to £2,000, which is what about the others were set at as well. 46,000 miles and 2 owners from new, husband and wife. This looked to be a particularly nice example, I must say, and it would appear that's what others thought too. And it was bid to £4,600 before the auction with 22 bids. So this one was in demand. It sold for an amazing £6,400. That's strong money for an S-Type Jag. Well, that concludes my sale results. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'd like to say thanks for watching, thanks for your interest, and until next time, take care.